Hey, thanks everybody for joining. Um, I'm here in my loft of my cabin. I never thought I'd have the whole faculty up here, but yeah, it's good to have you. So welcome. Anyway, yeah, I'm a bit of an introvert, and maybe some of you are too. And so getting in front of groups has always been challenging ever since I started teaching. But I love teaching. Something about it, just sharing uh, things with other people and watching them grow is just a rich part of it. So anyway, uh, in order to get over that kind of being an introvert, I learned early I need to jump on every opportunity to get in front of a group, to lead a group, to teach a group. So whenever an opportunity came, I was quick, even though there was something deep inside screaming, "No, you can't do it. It's not good. You don't have the qualifications," or whatever. Whatever was screaming no inside, I went ahead and said yes, and then I worried about the details later. And that became a habit early on, and it was great. I actually over time got a lot more comfortable and relaxed, and could teach a lot easier, and it was more enjoyable. So, of course, I teach leaders and educators now. So I always encourage my students to do that. When there's something deep inside saying no, the louder that is, probably the greater opportunity for you. You should consider saying yes quicker. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go over 3 points, 3 things that I've learned over 30 years, and I'm still working on. I have not perfected. That being one of them. That there's a voice inside. If it's yelling no, that means probably there's a great opportunity, and you need to consider. Well, maybe I should say yes here. But with that said, I'm not asking or encouraging anyone here to be a yes person, to say yes to everything. That's crazy too, right? So I have a couple other points I want to make. Before I do that, first of all, I really respect this group. This group is awesome. This group of faculty, to teach your peers, I think is the hardest thing. I don't really see that I'm teaching today. We've got 15, 20 minutes. I'm hoping to encourage things that you're already experts at, maybe cause you to reflect and scratch and think, and maybe even be a little more intentional. So hopefully I can offer some encouragement. So I'm not pretending to be able to give you any new information, but maybe encouragement. So anyway, my 3 points. One of them is I've learned over my career to pick my nose well. You heard me right. To pick my nose well. We'll go over that in just a minute. Of course, the second one is to, when that inner voice is saying, no, 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 try to push it away and say yes, yes, yes. And the third one is you should never pick anyone else's nose. So with that, I'll explain those in a little more detail with some stories. I mentioned early on, I was quick to say yes, right? And early in my career, I found myself overwhelmed, burning the candle on both ends. And so I remember getting called into one of my first end of the year evaluations with my division chair, Bertie Eason. Belton, you might remember Bertie, a few of you. She was a wonderful woman, retired here. She first retired in Southwestern Louisiana University before she came here as a physical education professor. But she was my division chair, and she sat me down and said, "Clyde, you need to learn to pick your nose better." And I had to do a double take. Have I been picking my nose in public? And what she was getting at is choose when to say no, right? You need to pick those times when it's time to say no. You can't say yes to everything. And so I really want to emphasize that. I think we all need to have balance in our lives. We all need to, give time to our significant others, to children, to ourselves. So I'm not advocating saying yes to everything, right? So that's one of my first stories is, we need to learn to pick our nose well. So let's talk a little bit about that little inner voice yelling or telling us no, or maybe even yelling no, and us overcoming that. I want to share a few areas where I learned to do that and reap tremendous benefits. First of all, I've been here a long time. I've been here with the transition of Brevard College from a 2-year college to a 4-year college. I've seen the evolution to our current mission statement, which is definitely an evolution over years and years of learning things that work in a small liberal arts college and doing it better year after year. I'm excited where we are right now. But there's always been opportunities to some degree to cross out of your department, or even better so, drop across the lines of divisions and work with faculty across the divisions. And that's, there's always something when I've had an opportunity, that little voice inside has always gotten louder when there's been an opportunity to work with somebody else in another division. Because I don't feel qualified. Maybe this person, man, they have this doctorate and they've been in this field for so long and everything's saying no, no, no. But I found that every time I've said yes, I've overcome that that voice and said yes. I've never regretted it. I've worked over the years with some amazing faculty in all of our divisions. And I'm going to go through some of them right now. I worked 4 years teaching with Barbara Borner in a senior leadership class. Barbara Borner, she's an amazing lady, just oozing with wisdom, just from years and years of being in the business field. But she was a business professor. We taught seniors together for quite a few years. And, you know, I look back on those times and just what I learned from her and was amazed. I've worked with Dan Moore, the psychologist, Dr. Dan Moore. What a character. And to spend time in the classroom with him, teaching with him, man, it was just a rich experience. I've worked with Ken Shamley. I paddled over 300 miles of rivers with Ken Shamley, a poet, here, a wilderness educator, paddling with a poet and sharing the classroom. I've taught link classes with Ken as well. And John Padgett. John, I've paddled over 300 miles with John Padgett, talking about literature through the heart of South Carolina. Been incredible experiences. Jim Reynolds, I've got to talk in the class, teach in the classroom with an internationally acclaimed geologist. And just to share our passions together with our students, it's just been incredible and has really enriched my time over the past 30 years. Amy Scheidegger, yeah, a criminal justice professor. Imagine that. I get to teach with a criminal justice professor here at a small liberal arts college. What an amazing thing. We had a great time together. Vance Reese, I was this close to doing a great trip with Vance Reese, but we got to spend some time together and talk about music and talk about dreams. And man, actually, if this COVID didn't happen, we'd be sitting on a river right now, sharing stories in our lives. So anyway, whenever you have an opportunity here at Brevard College to teach with another colleague across a division line, do it. I love my colleagues in the Woolley program. We've been together for a long, long time. But to cross division lines, that's the beauty of where we are. So I really want to encourage you to do that. Another time where maybe it's easy to say no is on emails. And so I'll share another story there. Going through emails, it's easy to see opportunities and delete, 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 delete. That's usually how I start my day. Probably a lot of you do too. Delete, delete, delete. Sometimes they'll come from academic affairs. Scott, are you there? I don't see you. But delete.
I'm here, Clyde.
Okay. Well,
you don't hit automatic delete on those.
I remember one time there was one from our academic affairs, and it says opportunity through ACA. Hey, listen to those if you get a chance. Open them up. Take the time. It's easy to delete. But go to Salzburg to a global seminar. Salzburg, where's that? Oh, yeah, that's in Austria. I've never been in Europe. That's a great opportunity. And everything was saying, nah, Clyde, you're not qualified. You can't do that. But heck fire, it'd only take 20 minutes to fill out an application, send it in. And sure enough, next thing I knew, I was on a plane going to Austria. I went 3 times to global seminars where met leaders from all over the world and other faculty from all over the world, and actually got a chance to exchange dialogue and think about how I can come back to our liberal arts education, liberal arts college here and teach from a more global perspective. What a powerful experience. I've even talked 3 students into going to Salzburg on ACA grants, and it changed their lives. So it was all because I didn't delete, right? there was something inside me saying, no, you can't do that. You're not qualified. Hey, jump on those opportunities. Look for opportunities like that. Another story I want to share is early in my career, I was involved with a professional association, the Wilderness Education Association. And I was just, a member, going to meetings, going to conferences, learning about our professional field so I could bring it back to our campus. And a position came open on the board, and somebody asked me to be on the board. And whoa, I don't know if I'm qualified to be on the board of a professional association, but that voice was coming up, right? But I pushed it aside and I said, sure. So I got on the board, and our first board meeting, the conference site for their national conference that year fell through. And so they were asking the board, hey, does anybody have a place we could meet? And I'm thinking, okay, Brevard College is pretty small. This is a pretty large conference. There's lots of universities represented around the table here. But I said, yeah, Brevard College will do it. I didn't talk to anybody back at Brevard, right? So it's huge implications of doing that, yes. But I figured I'd make it happen. And we did. We hosted a national conference on our campus here, used the local hotels, used the buildings on the campus. And it brought national recognition to the Willie program here early on. And I think it really changed the direction of everything. So it was easy for me on both those situations to back up and say, no, I don't have time for this. Lots of reasons. That voice was loud, and I pushed it aside. We've even hosted another national conference here with the American Mountain Guides Association. The only one ever offered here east of the Mississippi was on our Brevard College campus. So I could go over many, many, many more stories and examples of where that noise inside got loud, and it was easy to back off and say no. Hey, I'm so impressed with looking at the list of workshops that were right before this. How many of them were young faculty that haven't been here long? Man, you're learning to push that voice aside and say yes. I know it wasn't easy to teach in front of your peers, but I really enjoyed the lessons I sat in on the workshops. So let me just really encourage you in your profession here. I know a lot of you are experts at it already, but listen to that voice. And if it's saying no and getting real loud, that's a time you need to really think, well, maybe this is the time to say yes, because it's full of opportunities. So my last point that I wanted to get to is with the story too, is don't pick another person's nose. I learned that when I was developing the Willie program years ago. I had a blank slate, and we were going from 2-year to 4-year, so I got a chance to build this Willie program. And so I started going around. I spent a spring break going up the Eastern Seaboard, stopping at any school, university, and talking to faculty. What do you do? What works? Stopping with outdoor organizations. What are you looking for in employees? Trying to craft things. And there was way up in Maine is where I ended up. And I'd heard this fellow, Paul Petzel, had retired up there, and he was considered kind of the grandfather of outdoor education by some folks in this field. He was started the first mountain guide company in America, or one of the first, in the 20s in the Grand Tetons. You're doing your math. Okay, he's dead now. Yeah, you're right. But this was 30 years ago, right? So I heard he had retired, but he had trained military through World War II in wilderness survival, and particularly winter survival. He was instrumental in bringing Outward Bound to the United States, internationally known outdoor business. In Colorado, he started the National Outdoor Leadership School to train leaders for the outdoor industry. Knowles, some of you might have heard of that. He started several different professional associations, just really an amazing person. So I heard he had retired in Maine, and I was there, and I thought, man, should I call him? And my inner voice was saying no. I was saying no for Paul Petzel. And finally, I got up the courage. I'm going to call and see if he'll give me half an hour for lunch. So I called him, and he said, well, where are you staying? Well, I was staying in a tent or in the back of my Subaru. That's where I was sleeping. This was in March. There was a foot of snow on the ground. He said, come stay at the cabin. So he fed me lobster that night, and I actually stayed 3 days, and we crafted what is now the immersion semester through my interaction with him. And it would have been easy just to say no. Paul Petzels is too big. Hey, I've learned this also with these Zoom meetings as well with my students. I mentioned the last time we were together that I really feel like our calling is very noble. We're training the next leaders, and I believe other people believe that too. And so I found it has been real easy to call people and have them come into a Zoom meeting. People who I think are too busy, they don't want to come talk to my students. And it's easy for me to say no for them. But I've been amazed when I've called people to come in as guest speakers, how quickly they say yes. So the point is, don't say no for people. If you really want to work with somebody to better yourself, to influence our students, don't say no for them. Ask them. So 3 points. Know when to pick your own nose, right? Learn to pick it well. keep your life balanced. That's huge. The second one is, the louder that voice gets inside saying, no, you're not capable. No, don't do it. This is bad. There's more opportunity there. So consider saying yes. And lastly is, don't pick anybody else's nose. So that's my last words of advice or thoughts for what it's worth.